Thank you, everyone, for joining the Central Florida IBM Endpoint Manager Users Group meeting. My name is Jack Schneider. I'm the User Group Manager for IBM User Communities. So today's meeting is titled BigFix, Going Back to Its Security Roots. And our presenter today is Ben Dixon, the IBM Security Technical Specialist. So we will be taking questions for Ben from the audience, so please submit them via the chat applet on the right-hand side of your screen. This meeting will be recorded and provided along with a copy of the slide deck in the Central Florida IBM Endpoint Managers User Group Media Gallery. So please keep an eye out for a follow-up once that is available within the next day. If you are having technical difficulties, please attempt to reconnect. And without further delay, I'd like to go ahead and pass it on over to Ben. Ben, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Great. Okay, as you said, I'm Ben Dixon with IBM. I've got Troy Jesse here with me. Troy is going to add some content for us when we start talking about some of the BigFix security pieces, particularly with the patch management later on in the broadcast. What we'll be looking at today is an overview of some of the IBM security, the BigFix and how it fits into the security portfolio, some of the product updates within BigFix, and then we'll look at BigFix and patch management, BigFix and compliance. I've got a Q&A bullet there, but as you said, we will, if you have a question in the way, go ahead and use the applet on the side of the GoToWebinar app, and some of those will be calling out and answering as we go, maybe in some of the content, and then we'll have a period of time at the end where if somebody wants to ask specific questions, we'll either answer those at the end of the broadcast, or we will get those questions and post the answers on the website. So the first piece I wanted to look at here is IBM Security. For over 15 years, or excuse me, over 50 years since the introduction of the mainframe in the 70s, IBM has been committed to providing comprehensive security that meets the evolving needs. We've invested substantially, and you can see here some of the investments that we've done since 2002. We've got 70 plus new offerings in the last 12 months even, and we've got major innovations in every IBM security domain. What we decided to do recently, as recently as 2012, with the creation of the IBM Security Systems Division, it brought multiple solutions together to increase focus and help us drive some long-term strategy for the organization with regard to security. And in 2015, earlier this year, the Security Systems Division became a primary business unit of IBM called IBM Security. So that's where we sit right now. You'll notice that we have the BigFix product here, which was an acquisition in 2010. And some of the other things that we'll touch on today that we're more than happy to talk to you in greater detail, maybe at a later date, is the integration with products such as Q1 Labs, Mass 360 by FiberLink, which has been rebranded as Mobile First Protect, the Trusteer integration. All of those are things that BigFix integrates with. So when we look at the IBM Maturity Model that we've developed, it represents a set of controls that the customers need, that we've seen our customers need to provide basic and or more advanced security in each domain. Each organization that we have has different security requirements based on industry regulations, risk levels, budgets, overall strategy, and IBM can help identify the existing maturity model, the entry points based on current status and strategy to move to a higher level of maturity in any given domain. Now, the piece that we're going to look at today primarily is the top right, network, mobile, and endpoint protection, because that's where the BigFix products fit in this particular maturity model. What we've been able to do by rolling all of our security focus into the IBM Security is integration. We've been able to integrate solutions and service systematically to create and provide new security solutions. We've been able to integrate some third-party tools, and we have brought along the threat intelligence to deploy a systematic approach to automatically detect, notify, and respond to threats that have been identified across security capabilities, domains, and stakeholders. So you can look at this as you see in the bottom there are the ecosystem, if you will, of what we're calling now the IBM Security. And how does BigFix fit into this? Well, prior to our migration, if you will, over to IBM Security, we sort of sat, I guess, straddled the line between asset management and security. And while there are a lot of components within BigFix that fit the asset management model, things like inventory, software use analysis, OS deployment, we've also got, and we've expanded and we've grown into areas that we'll be talking about today as far as patch management and security compliance. And we've seen that the need for a product like BigFix is while I don't want to take anything away from the asset management idea, but it's needed to be able to connect to and reinforce some of the other products that we have in our security stack at IBM. And speaking of which, we've built this around, which we'll see on another slide here, of protecting the security domains of people, data, and applications and infrastructure, and we extend to a layer of advanced fraud protection. The entire IBM Security Portfolio is supported by industry-leading IBM X-Force research, which provides real-time threat intelligence. So we see the security portfolio. You can see there's a lot of products there, and Endpoint Manager sits right here along with our Mobile First Protect or Mass 360, and these are the tools that we're going to be interfacing with, especially QRadar and Trusteer. So as I said, we've got a security strategy, and we've basically got three intents here: to support your agenda, deliver portfolio solutions to things that address your latest trends. We want to innovate around mega trends, things like advanced threats. We want to help you protect in the cloud. We want to, we hear the expression so many times, making do with what we have or doing more with less. We recognize that we can't just go out and hire 10 new people if we need 10 new bodies, so we've got to automate, and that's where BigFix comes in handy a lot of times. And then we've got a lot of compliance mandates that we'll look at when we talk about security. So the security portfolio, the pieces of it, and we see the BigFix piece fits in with endpoint protection, but we touch a lot of things like application security, risk and compliance, assessment and response. And the goal here is to be able to plug the information from BigFix into any and all of these solutions within the security portfolio. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody to see that despite things that are going on, existing tools, latest trends, fixing this and protecting that, we see breaches continuing to rise. One of the things to keep in mind here is that the attackers, the people that are attacking and trying to compromise our data, they're not coming to the front door and trying to get in that way. they're using all sorts of creative and innovative and really low-tech solutions. One of the things that things like logging in or using login credentials stolen from an employee, using third-party tools to get into the enterprise. And one of the things that we're using BigFix for is to protect against those things, to be able to log things on the endpoint, to recognize anomalies along with Trusteer. One of the things that we've seen that I've seen when I've been out to visit customers is when we want to talk about IT operations, things like asset management or patch management in a lot of cases, we're talking to the folks on the IT operations side. If we want to talk about things like physical security, security policies, and compliance, we're then talking to the folks on the security side. And there hasn't been traditionally, and it's not necessarily good, bad, or indifferent, it's just a fact of the way people have done business. A lot of the people in the security side and the IT operations getting together and collaborating on how do we protect, how do we manage the entire IT ecosystem, the entire enterprise. One of the things that BigFix does is bring some of those discussions together, because not only do we have visibility into the endpoints and what's installed on the endpoint, but we have the visibility in near real time to the compliance and vulnerability of the endpoints with regard to patches that are installed or patches that are missing, and compliance that the computers may or may not be, or the policies that the computers may or may not be compliant with. So some of the product updates that I want to talk about, because some of these are driving really the direction that BigFix is heading as far as being a full-fledged member of the IBM Security Portfolio. We decided to do a little bit of consolidation. Well, first, I guess I should address the big title there. We've decided to bring the BigFix name back. It's been known by, if you've been working with BigFix for a while, it's been known by a few names. First, when IBM acquired it, it was known by BigFix, and then it was part of the Tivoli stack. It was known as Tivoli Endpoint Manager, or TIM. Last year, beginning or the end of 2013, all through 2014, IBM Endpoint Manager. Then we had IBM Endpoint Manager built on BigFix technology. And so rather than confuse the waters anymore, we're just going back to the name BigFix. It seems to be one that resonates with a lot of customers. That's what people are used to, and so we're going to try to make BigFix a household name again. We've done some simplification. We had a lot of stacks of products, a lot of suites, and we've decided to fold some of that functionality in. Two of the things most notably that we've done is folded power management and what was known as server automation into the into the lifecycle management portfolio. So not only do we have discovery, inventory, OS deployment, software distribution, and remote control, but we've added in server automation, which is going to be known as advanced or enhanced patch management, and we've added power management into that as well. We've got the alignment, I think, in a place where we need it to be right now. We've got patch, we've got lifecycle, we've got compliance and core protection. It integrates with QRadar and our threat protection and nicely, and I think that what we've done from a product perspective is really going to align with the folks that are really looking for security solution from the endpoint, what it's doing, what's going on there, to the entire infrastructure. So this should be something that most big fixers should be familiar with. This is our BigFix infrastructure. We've got our single intelligent agent. Unlike some of the other solutions, that the database does all of the work and we query the database for information that we want. We've got an intelligent agent that performs all the functions, does a continuous self-assessment, and if we want to know something that's going on right now, we ask the agent right now. The single server and console that's scalable, IBM scaling to over 250,000 endpoints for one single server. We've got cloud-based delivery. That's always been one of the functions within BigFix. It started out as a cloud-based content delivery model and has continued to be that way. We've got the robust infrastructure. We've got existing systems or new systems that we can use as relays to help support the traffic. We've got support for roaming endpoints. And again, the policy language, the flexible language or fixlets. We've got out-of-the-box policies that I don't know about you, but a lot of times if I need to do something that's not published, I'll find a fixlet that's just like it. I'll copy it, I'll change it a little bit, and I'll make it do what I need it to do. We can also do custom policy authoring if there's something that needs to be done from the start, and the application or the extensible platform that's applicable across just about every platform. There's over 90 operating systems that we support. So the whole thing is to, as the slide says, bridge the gap between security and IT operations. One of the things that I guess you could call it a tagline is find it, fix it, and secure it. And the FAST really does get brought in by BigFix because there isn't another solution that can go out there and find out what's going on in your environment right now and allow you to take action on it right now. So we're looking at the endpoint management, endpoint security, discovery and patching, both from discovering new endpoints to discovering compliance and vulnerability, lifecycle and the continuous monitoring of that. What we do, lifecycle management, software compliance, software usage, threat protection, and incident response. So the whole idea here is to try to do more with less, try to do with what we have, reduce some of the operational costs, while not taking a second or a back seat to the security posture, being able to keep that up as well. Within the BigFix endpoint management and security, we really have these 5 stacks. We've talked a little bit about lifecycle, and I'll touch on the first 2, even though we're going to talk about patch here. But I want to talk about the first 2 because I think they're worth mentioning, even though we're not going to be covering them in detail on this webcast. We've got asset discovery. We can use that to do a one-time or scheduled discovery of assets on the network. Sometimes all it takes is somebody plugging a rogue device into the network and being able to gain access. So we can set up discoveries, we can set up conditions whereby we can see those rogue devices. We've got software distribution, which coupled with patching can be used to patch or update just about any application, just about any situation that you can imagine. Also, standing on its own, software distribution can be used to distribute software, office applications, endpoint or workstation applications, and we can also update things on servers as well. When we bring in advanced patching, that's the server automation piece that was formerly by the name of server automation. And what we have the ability to do with that, for people who aren't familiar with the capabilities of server automation, is that we can create an automation plan which allows us to do any number of things, from starting and stopping services to applying baselines, distributing software, rebooting computers, We can also do some cluster patching as well, where we can stop an active node. We can make another node active. We can patch a node of a failover cluster. We can reboot that and then switch and then fail over the nodes again to be able to patch the other side and leave it back the way it was when we found it. OS deployment, we've got the ability to deploy operating systems, Windows, Linux, Mac, to endpoints, both redeployment and bare metal. I skipped over remote control. We've got the ability to do a peer-to-peer remote control, which is useful for the help desk to be able to troubleshoot things. Maybe the end user can't quite describe what's going on the computer. Power management, which is the piece that I mentioned before that's bringing into lifecycle. We've got a lot of, and we have for some time, had some green initiatives. And a lot of companies, a lot of people have gone just about as far as they think they can with this. Power management maybe lets you take it a little bit further, where we can monitor the power consumption per kilowatt hour on our devices. We can also schedule the devices to turn off. And we've got what I would consider an enhanced wake on LAN. Usually companies don't have wake on LAN forwarders enabled, but we can use the power of BigFix to install wake on LAN forwarders in different subnets, and we can push the wake on LAN to those endpoints, which in turn can wake up the endpoints on a local subnet. So you don't have to have the wake on LAN forwarding enabled, because we can do it with the existing infrastructure. Hardware and software inventory, which goes into the software usage reporting, where we can do metering of applications. It's useful. It's going to be useful coming up with the Windows 10 and potentially Office 10. If we found out that maybe we're not using the particular, we want to find out if we're using the level of Office that we bought and have our maintenance agreement with, maybe we can meter something like InfoPath or Publisher and see how many people are using those. Maybe we don't have to buy quite as many licenses of Premium or Ultimate or whatever it might be called next time around, and maybe save some money on maintenance. We can correlate with the software catalog, third-party catalog that's published, and we can see what's out there in our environment and what's installed. But getting back to patch management, which is the piece we're going to be looking at right here, some of the features that we've had and some of the features that we continue to support, obviously operating system patching across the board over lots of different operating systems. We can patch third-party applications. We've got some that are out of the box, and the ability to patch some of the others with a software distribution policy, and handling offline patching. So as you know, the BigFix Enhanced, or the intelligent agent, it goes out and it's continually monitoring the endpoint, and it identifies patches and reports. So we can really report on every endpoint, no matter what it is. We can patch the endpoints. We can see the compliance and vulnerability in almost near real time. And most of our customers report, in upwards of somewhere between 98% on average first pass patch success. We've got support for multiple operating systems. We've got some increased coverage. Some of these are new or enhanced features. Some increased coverage of Microsoft product patches. We've increased the coverage for third-party application support, Java downloads, increased support there. When we look at Linux, we've got patch content for multiple distributions. And again, one of the things that I'd like to point out here is that we have a single agent, and this one agent does all of these tasks. We don't have to have multiple agents to handle multiple tasks. native tools to handle flexibility. And we've got the ability, in most cases, across most operating systems, the ability to roll back, which means that if something goes wrong, let's say it works for Server 2012, but it doesn't for Server 2008, then we can roll those back. Or if we have a Linux patch we push out and it doesn't do what we expect it to do, or it breaks another application, then we can roll it back. Solaris support and AIX support, both of which are native in the environment.
HPUX as well.
Yes. When we look at the Windows OS, we look at the broad patch coverage for the Windows OS. We know that the coverage policy is that Microsoft releases their updates on Patch Tuesday, and our team's commitment is to deliver patches for the English content within 24 hours and non-English content within 48. Many times I've seen the content in my console when I wake up on Patch Tuesday. So even though the SLA says 24 hours, a lot of times it's there much before that. They also release non-security updates pretty much at any time. It could be on Patch Tuesday or it could be any other day in the month. And within those, there's some that are classified as zero-day security advisory and security advisory. And we have updates delivered for those within 24 and 48 hours, respectively. They've got some non-security updates, things like service packs and critical updates. We address those outside the 48-hour window. And then remaining non-security updates like hot fixes and other updates are addressed as needed and sometimes at customers' request. We've got non-security patches that include zero-day advisories within 24 hours, other security advisories within 48. Service packs usually within 7 days. It's not strictly enforced, but we try to hit that 7-day window. Other critical updates within 7 days, like we said, with the hot fixes per customer request and other updates. So what we want to try to do is make sure that you have the content that you need in a timely fashion to remediate your environment. Within the third-party applications, we have obviously patch coverage for Microsoft applications. We've got a list of supported applications. There's a hyperlink on the slide that I'll get the link destination information and make sure that it's part of the slide deck when we publish it. We've got third-party applications that include Adobe, iTunes, QuickTime, the Java runtime. We've also got some fixlets available to detect outdated third-party applications. And we've also, I don't know how many people have used it, but we've got a fixlet maker that allows you to create custom fixlets to deliver patch applications. The coverage continues, obviously, to Linux. We cover all the security and critical fixes, the deployment wizard to deploy RPM patches. We've got the patch deployment supporting native tools. We've got patch deployment using custom repository management on Red Hat as well. We mentioned the easy rollback before, and it's worth mentioning again. The ability to roll back, it's one of the cleanest things that I've seen, both from a Microsoft perspective, Linux perspective, lots of different flavors of Linux operating systems. We've got the transaction history dashboard to manage the rel patches, undos and redos support. We can see the installed patches within patch history. and just some of the other features. From an AIX perspective, covering the technology level and service pack fix packs, we can handle interim fixes as well. This is the screenshot here is for the Interim Fix Wizard that we can pull down the appropriate iFix and use the wizard to deploy that. And Troy, this is what you mentioned about the patch coverage for Solaris and HPUX, covering security patches, the download plugins. Each one of the operating systems that requires it has a download plugin to facilitate the download and deployment and caching of the particular patches, so that we can pull them down and have a cached repository of those patches locally, so that we don't have to pull them down when they're needed. And what that buys us is the time. Let's say we have a patch window that we have to do all of our patching within the window. Well, we can pull down and stage those patches ahead of time, so that when it comes time to patch, we're patching and we're not downloading. Let's look a little bit right now at BigFix and compliance. We see patch management also in the compliance sector, but we see configuration management and vulnerability assessment. We see analytics, some third-party management, and self-quarantine that we'll get to. The piece that is not covered in here is the PCI DSS. If anyone has a question about that, please just submit a question with your name and the word PCI, and I'll make sure that you get the appropriate information. So when we look at compliance, obviously we're looking at continuous real-time enforcement, because there's really no point of having a product that only looks every once in a while, or there's really no point in having a product that goes out and queries the endpoints and finds out what's going on the endpoints. Then it stores the information in a database. That information is only as good as the minute it got stored or the minute it was queried on the endpoint. The difference is that the BigFix platform, using the fixlet relevance language through fixlets and tasks and analyses, using the intelligent agent, gets the information in near real time when we need it, when it's time to take action on a vulnerability. We've got the ability to discover unmanaged endpoints that we talked about before, automatic patch and remediation for the systems that might not be compliant, doing deployments and updates for endpoint protection solutions. And we've got the ability to do policy-based quarantine, which we'll look at here in a minute, of non-compliant systems. And all of it's based on regulatory benchmarks from standard checklists that are already in use, and some of the things that our customers are already required to comply to. This slide is worth looking at. The first time I saw this, I didn't quite understand what the message here was. But if you look at this red line, this is traditionally what we do. We race to be compliant, and we get to that point. We get to that peak. And then over time, let's call this, the day after Patch Tuesday. And throughout the month, we see things falling off because, well, we're not really looking at them. And then we get to this point where we discover, oh, it's time to, start paying attention to the compliance again. And then we race to get our compliance. And then we take a breath, and we take a breather, and we take a break, and things fall out of compliance again. Well, if you've seen if you're familiar with the policy templates within BigFix, if you're familiar with the applicability within BigFix and how fixlets work and how the relevance language works, it's looking at is querying the endpoints to say, are you or is this applicable to you? And the endpoint says, yes, it is. And so we install the patch, we install the security fix, we take action on the compliance policy. The endpoint is compliant. From there, we continue to keep track of it. We continue to keep tabs on it. Maybe we set up a patch to reapply if the machine becomes vulnerable again. And so we've got the ability to not only be able to maintain this compliance here, but we don't drop off. Instead, we get more compliant, and we're able, as we go forward, to maintain our compliance in this direction, the way we should, instead of falling off and having to load up and spend all of this time and all of this effort right here trying to get back to where we should be. So we don't have these high-risk periods, and we don't have manual approaches. We maintain everything in near real time, and we're able to have visibility into the environment that we need to protect. This is a screenshot from our Security Compliance Analytics tool. What we're looking at here is really insight in reporting to meet some of the compliance regulations. These checklists that are mentioned here, these checklists, this particular graph, these are checklists that we can implement the entire checklist, or we can implement just a piece of it. Let's say we like we need the checks from the disasstig for Windows 7, but there's hundreds of checks in there, and we only need about 20 of them. Well, we can create a checklist. We've got a wizard that allows us to create a custom checklist to manage only those 20 checks, and we make only those 20 checks applicable to our environment or to our Windows 7 machines. That way, we're not looking at the other 180-something checks. We can see the ones that that only apply to us. What's more, let's say there's a CIS checklist for Windows 7, and we have 7 checks out of that list. We can combine those two into a custom checklist that suits our environment, and we can put some patch information in there too. So we really do end up with just the things that fit us. And it's fine if we need all of the checks, like I said, but sometimes you just need a few, or you want to combine the information. The checks, these 2,000 checks fall into these 10 checklists. So we can look at compliance by checklist, or we can look at it by individual checks. Things like how compliant are the computers individually? How are the files and in this case, we've got file and directory access checks in there. We can look at those specifically, or we can summarize them by check. We can also look at things by computer group. So if we have a computer group of secure or high availability servers that we need to have some checks running on, we can look at them from that perspective. Or, as we see here, we can look at the individual computers. And we can see our compliance history, and we can see our compliance as we go, and the results history in this case, as we progress in time, and we keep historical information. We can also look at a vulnerability assessment, which is a dashboard within our environment. This particular one happens to be vulnerabilities to Windows overview. And as the expression goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We can see just at a glance how many of our agents are deployed, how many Windows agents are deployed, and of those, how many are evaluating. We can see what the applicable tasks are, the things that we've set up to go. We can see vulnerabilities that have been detected. We can see the vulnerability ratings of some of our computers. Pie charts Those are easy to see, easy to understand. We've also got some patches, or some web reports that have been added over the last few months to the patch management content domain that have increased the visibility into compliance and vulnerability in some of those checks. We've also got integration available with QRadar that we can strengthen risk assessment and speed detection of malware, so that it can, the faster we can detect it, the faster we can remediate it, the faster we can stay and maintain our compliance. This is a great feature right here. We've got the ability within the compliance module to do quarantine of endpoints that aren't compliant. Now, the way this works, sort of under the covers, is that we've got endpoints that can, surf the internet. We've got, an endpoint here that can get to, to iTunes or whatever we might need to get to. So we've got an endpoint here that hasn't been patched for whatever reason. Maybe we deploy the patches and we rely on the end user to install them. Maybe it's been off the network. Maybe it's been in a closet. Maybe it hasn't even been turned on. Well, we've got the ability to go out and set up compliance standards so that any non-compliant endpoint is actually taken off the network. The network connection is blocked, so that the only connection that it can make is to a relay that's going to allow it to download and patch itself. And essentially what we do, the same way that we would communicate from the BigFix server to the relay down to the endpoint across port 52311, that's essentially what we do to be able to block or isolate or quarantine the particular endpoint. We control the port communications and allow it to only talk to the relay. And once it's compliant, once it's fixed, once it's done its rebooting and checked in, the relay has passed the information up to the BigFix server that it's compliant again. Then we can open up the connection and allow it to do its business. Oh, I think that's the last slide I had. So what I'm going to do is, based on, and I'll get Troy to help me here with some of the questions. One of my icons is blinking, which tells me that some questions have been submitted. So we'll take a look at those and see what the questions are and the things that we can answer for you.
So can you allow customers of ports to stay enabled during the quarantine?
Well, that's how the quarantine works. Is we have the port that's available is the port that we would use to communicate with the relay, or if we're communicating directly with the BigFix server, to communicate across that. The idea is that the endpoint, I liken it to the action message. One of the things that we use at IBM is, and we use BigFix to push out software, that once, let's say I have a patch that gets installed on my computer, the message that comes up tells me that I need to reboot. Now I can delay that for a period of time, but then comes the time that I need to do what I'm told to do. The method that they've chosen to do is keep the window topmost. Now, it's not intrusive, but it's annoying, and it does the job, because sooner or later you've got to reboot your computer so that you can do your work, so that you can see the whole screen. I kind of liken that to the quarantine, because while it might not be convenient, and it does its job, and we're only able to communicate with the server or the endpoint, in this case the relay, that's going to get us fixed. And once that time passes, then we can go and do the rest of the job.
So James had a follow-up question, right? But can I add more ports? The answer to that, James, is out of the box, the quarantine fixlet that it initiates is only 52.3.11, but you can actually customize that doing a custom and add the additional ports that you might need, although that then takes away from quarantining the box off of the network.
All right. If anybody does have any other questions, please submit them via the chat applet or via the questions window. We'll give it about a couple more minutes to see if anyone else has any feedback.
Much more than security only. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things that, and I hopefully I didn't gloss over it too much at the beginning of the presentation. While we do align, or we try to align ourselves with IBM Security because of some of the functionality that we have, the things that we looked at today, patch management, security compliance. I don't know, I would be, James, you're exactly right, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring out the automation that's involved, because it used to be if I was going to do something to, if I had a couple of servers and I was going to do something more than 3 or 4 times, then I might write it to a CD to do the task for me, or I might find a tool to automate it. Now we've got people with hundreds upon hundreds of servers, and you can't do what you need to do on a daily basis if you've got to go patch 100 servers, or you've got to check the compliance individually of 100 machines. So, James, you're exactly right. Without the automation, we really would be chasing our tails. And without the automation, we wouldn't be able to support the security initiative. We wouldn't be able to do compliance. We wouldn't be able to do patch management. So absolutely right. The automation, we can't overlook that. It's really the first step that we then use to do all of the other things that we need to do. So great comment. Thank you.
All right, those were all the questions I received for now, but I want to thank Ben for his presentation today. And if, real quickly, the Central Florida Endpoint Managers User Group, we'll have this, we'll send a follow-up email with a link to the recording and the slide deck. So if you want to go ahead and visit the Central Florida Endpoint Managers User Group, we'll include a link to the materials from today's virtual meeting. All right. And then, Ben, was there anything else you wanted to add from the presentation?
No, I think that's it. Like I said, I've got the list. There was a hyperlink on one of the slides that we're going to make sure that we that we include that list of applications. But I think that's about it.
Well, James Stewart had another question: is the user group virtual only, or is there an actual get together of group members down in Florida?
Luis, are you on the line right now?
He might be, but he might be muted.
Okay, he might be muted. Okay. But yes, I can quickly answer this question. So the Central Florida IBM Endpoint Managers User Group, they do meet face to face. And then what we could do, James, is give you a link to join the user group, so that way you can kind of keep up to date on what's happening within that area.
Lewis has indicated that they do periodic face-to-face meetings hosted by the Marriott Vacation.
All right, excellent. Well, everyone, thank you again for joining today's meeting, and a special thank you to Ben for his presentation. Again, this will be posted within 24 hours on the Central Florida IBM Endpoint Managers User Group Media Gallery. Everyone may now disconnect and have a great rest of the day. Thank you again, Ben, for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone.